Hello everyone and welcome to Imperator Rome, the latest offering by Paradox Development Studios and the spiritual sequel, successor to Europa Universalis Rome. Sort of forgotten game in the library of Paradox games if we're being completely honest, but it's nice to know that they still acknowledge that it exists. Before we jump into playing the game, I would just like to disclaim that I received a key for free from Paradox, so just keep that in mind as we go along in the video. We will go into single player, not multiplayer, because it's just me here, unfortunately, and then a new game. One thing that I noticed when you do a new game is that some of the leaders for the more, I don't want to use obscure, but I guess countries where there's less knowledge of have random names. Like I've jumped into a game a couple of times just to look at, for example, Pontus and see that their ruler has changes every single time. I don't know if that's still the same for Rome, honestly. I haven't paid that much attention. I've only played the game for about 10 hours, just played Rome mostly, and checked out a few other things. And before we pick a nation, because I honestly haven't made up my mind yet, as of this moment in recording, as to what nation to play as, there's a lot of interesting choices in the world. Maybe we should just look around and see what is available on the map. It is a pretty big map. Most of Northern Europe is, well, not available. Like Northern Norway, Northern Sweden, Finland is non-existent. And most of Russia is also in this cloud cover, fog, whatever you want to call it. It might be added later on, who knows? They have options for future expansions and such. If you just want to go into gameplay, well, I apologize, and you will probably have to skip forward into the video. We'll see how long it takes. So here we have my homeland of Sweden. We have Gufonia, Sonia, Leonia, Dania. I would like to have Dania here. Burgundia. I think that's where the Burgundians came from. I think the one theory is that it came from Bornholm, the island over here. The city of Burgundarholm, and then invaded and ended up here in modern-day Burgundy in France, where the capital is Dijon, like the mustard. In Norway of Grania and Aetelrugia. Teutonia should be a fairly recognizable name. I mean, the Teutonians were pivotal, maybe not pivotal, but their names, maybe due to the Teutonic Order as well. It's just... I'm just going to stop the sentence there. I don't know where I'm going with it. We have Anglia here and a bunch of other things in Germany. I've seen a few things from later in the game. Not that I have played myself, but you know, in videos and such. So I'm assuming that more tribes will appear and events will occur where things are created around these areas and migrations and stuff will occur. I look forward to seeing what happens with that. In England, we only have one thing in Ireland. I did briefly try to play as these guys, but it takes a long time to colonize because you need to have at least 10 people in the nearby city. And these guys don't start with many people. They start with 5 people in total, 3 of which I think is in this place and 2 of them here, all tribes people. So that's just fast forward until you probably have enough people, or maybe invade one of the nearby things and go to town. There's not a lot of people up here in the north at all. All of them are tribes people. None of them are anything else. And then we have a bunch of other people here. Gallia, I don't know too much about Gallia, so this is what's available, which is a patchwork of different nations, of different kinds. I have played the mod Imperium Universalis for Europa Universalis 4, which is also quite detailed. So some of the things I do recall from that, but obviously had different design philosophies in mind when they made the games, and also features in a different date. So things always change quite a lot. Hispania is even more of a patchwork. Look at this. Look at this over here. This is... maybe we should go into the political map mode. So look at this. A lot of minor nations that you could play as to just try to unite some sort of resistance, perhaps against the Roman people, or perhaps the Carthaginians. Speaking of which, Carthage has always been a nation that I've been interested in, or maybe not nation is not the right term for it. State, maybe? Entity? I don't know. Carthage has an interesting position. They start with a lot of subjects. You highlight it here really quickly, so you have to keep up. A lot of them are along the coast there, to be fair, there's a bunch of them. But they also have Massilia, for example, and these guys. So they have a lot of people to call in during wars, which could be interesting. It's like playing a Burgundy of sorts, but only bigger and perhaps more useful. We skip Italy for now and go straight into Egypt, where it's interesting to go from the patchworks in the west and then go to the east, where there are these massive, at least temporarily massive nations. I mean, as I mentioned, I played as Rome. I played, I don't know, 100 years maybe? I can't recall. And Phrygia and Seleucids both collapsed under constant civil wars and whatnot. So maybe that will happen, maybe it won't. We'll just have to see. It's straight after Alexander's death. So yeah, we'll see what happens with these giants, Phrygia, Egypt, and Seleucid. The Seleucids starts, or are at least very close to Mauria, which is a massive nation. Look at it. They have 6,000 pops at the very beginning of the game. And if we compare that to Phrygia, which is, they only have 3,000. It's not too bad. Yeah, but it's still a massive nation in India. They're all, I mean, they don't really have that much resistance, do they, in India? They have a small couple of nations over here, and that's it. And then they have the Seleucids, so they shouldn't have that much resistance. All of them start with different conditions, like the Seleucids and the Phrygians. They are more prone to civil wars, I think, than, for example, Rome will be in the very beginning, at least. So yeah, that can always change. Macedonia is, or Macedon, whatever you want to call them. I prefer Macedon, even though it sounds a bit weird in English, doesn't it? And of course, Thrace. One thing that maybe one day I would like to play is Athens, just to see what a democratic republic plays like. It could be interesting. But yeah, they have a lot of stratocratic monarchy. There's a lot of different government types. I look forward to trying them. So yeah, there's a bunch of nations all around. Armenia could be an interesting choice, or maybe playing up here in the Bosporan Kingdom. But the most interesting, I think, I mean, the game is called Imperator Rome, for heaven's sake, so I think we're going to end up playing as Rome. I know that probably every single goddamn YouTuber out there is putting out videos of Rome, but I will just join their ranks and be one of them. So yeah, Rome starts with also a couple of subjects, these 4 guys, which gives them a fairly strong starting position. They have a natural rival up there with Etruria, and they also have Samnium in the south and Lucania. So some people here that are fairly strong, though Rome is in a prime position to utilize, well, their forces to take over land. So we'll play as Rome. We'll jump into Rome. Or Carthage. No, Rome. It will be Rome. Just standard configuration, not Iron Man, just because of the risk of I don't know. I haven't had any crashes or something like that. But I never play with Iron Man. Never, ever. It does enable achievements, but I mean, I don't even have an achievement, I don't think, in Hearts of Iron 4 or CK2, maybe? I can't remember. Or maybe it's Stellaris that I don't have any. Yeah, it could be Stellaris that I don't have a single achievement in. Alright, there we go. Quick jump in. Senatus Populus Romanus. For over 20 years, the nascent Roman Republic has fought a harsh campaign against the Samnite people to the south. Although victory often seemed far from grasp, the war ended in Rome's favor, resulting in the liberation of the important Greek city of Neapolis. The Samnites, however, having retreated to lick their wounds, are far from defeated. In the north, the Etruscan people eyed the expansion of the Republic with apprehension. To the south, a myriad Greek city-states plot behind one another's backs, all the while appealing to the benefactors in Greece for aid. On the far-flung island of Sicily, the foreign invasion of the mysterious Carthaginian Empire threatens to upset the precarious balance of power in the region. Will Rome rise victorious or fall to internal strife and barbaric hordes? The fate of the Republic rests in your hands. For the Republic, I say. And here we are in the Republic. Here we are in the Republic. We have one legion of 5 heavy infantry, 5 light cavalry, and 5 archers. And straight off the bat, I just need to point out, and I do that in a lot of games where I do that too. I am not great at these kind of games. I'm not someone to look for if you're trying to find the most optimal play or something like that. I try to be at least somewhat competent, but I'm not great at these games. Just bear that in mind. If you are frustrated by mistakes that I make, and that annoys you, I'm sorry, but I am but a human being. Alright, we have put now Marcus Fulvius Curvus in charge of Legion 1. He is a member of the Fulvii family, or Fulvi family. He has 8 martial, 4 finesse, 5 charisma and 4 zeal, and belongs to the religious faction. A lot of these things will come up as we go along, but those are just his base stats. He's stubborn and unnoticeable, so his prominence is, well, 0 still, despite being a general. It's quite remarkable. Prominence features in stuff like, for example, we can take a look here. We'll see, you have a console, and I completely understand why they went with playing as one console, or having one console instead of 2, and then having a console for 5 years instead of having 2 consoles for a year each. Because if you had those changing every single year, I mean, in real life, a year is fairly long. In these games, a year it just goes by quickly. That would be frustrating after really no time at all. But anyway, well, we can see here the breakdown of the support. So we have a Senate here of in total 50, or in total 100 seats. And to become the next console, you need to have the support of, well, the plurality, or maybe even majority, if you can manage that, of the senators. And this guy has the support of 48 senators, and not only from his own faction, but also from different factions. And the 3 things that are factored in here, as far as I can tell, is how popular the guy is, what his popularity stat is, how prominent he is, his prominence stat, and also if he's the faction leader or not. So you can see here from the Civic faction that he has 35% of them because of his popularity. The prominence is parried off by the being not a faction member. So he is probably, yeah, he's probably going to be the console. But things can always change. They can always change. He's losing popularity currently. Well, due to him not really gaining enough to maintain it. So things can change. Alright, we have where to even start in this game. And a new game with, I mean, familiar but new mechanics. There is a lot to go through. And I'm not really certain where to start, so let's just start with these things. So you have a bunch of families, and you have a character view here. Right, so Rome starts with quite a few characters, as can be seen here. Many of them children that will then grow up to become generals and researchers and whatnot. And you have families where all these people belong to. Some of them start off scorned, and you will always have scorned families. You can't really do much about it unless you really, really try to micromanage. And the family will be scorned unless the total income of its members received from jobs and offices is at least 2% of our national income. As you can see, like, if you want to give all of these families 2% of the income each, that's not really feasible to maintain any sort of empire, is it? So some of them will be scorned. You just have to make sure you pick which ones. So sometimes, like right now, is picked the highest guy for the job here. He had the highest amount of martial. In some cases, you may want to do a bit of politics and pick someone that is slightly worse but belongs to family to avoid that family being scorned. Because the families can consist of quite a few members. I think right now we only have one that is like 5. Yeah, this thing. And if it is scorned, which this one actually is, then you will lose, let's see, where is it? Loyalty every month. For some characters, you couldn't really care less, right? If someone's uncle is mad at you, then why would you care? But in some cases, you will care, because that guy might not just be the uncle, he's the leader of one of the most powerful legions that you have. So yeah, that's something to keep in mind. Then we have inventions here, and this is one of the things that seem more like Victoria 2 than EU4. This game is, in a few ways, it's a mixture of mechanics from all kinds of games. It has a bit from Victoria 2, it has a bit from CK2, it has a bit from EU4, and they kind of mashed them all together and also, of course, EU Rome. Mash them all together and adjust them a bit to fit. And one of the things there that seems to me a bit more like Victoria 2 is the research points thing, or perhaps Stellaris for that matter. The amount of citizens you have and their productiveness will produce a certain amount of, let's see, where do we go with the technology? It will produce a certain amount of research points that then is added on here. So instead of having, for example, in EU4 with the monarch power where you just invest and suddenly gain a level, here you progress through the levels. I mean, you can affect it, but you can affect it indirectly by getting more citizens, for example, or making them happier. Yeah, that's it's quite a neat system. And then in addition to that, in each of these levels, you will unlock certain kinds of inventions, and you can use your civic power to pick inventions. You can't pick them all unless you're really good at civic power production, which is unlikely. So you will have to pick which ones you want carefully. There's all kinds of different bonuses that we get here, like diplomatic reputation, improve opinion maximum, and let's see here. What would we want here? Depends on what kind of nation we want to play, doesn't it? Technology speed 5% sounds to be pretty good. But also human conduct. Maybe we should take human conduct and we could have property tax to get some more money. Yeah, we'll take the property tax. There we go. We have used up all our current civic power to gain some inventions that will improve our nation. And now we have the religious aspect, which consists of omens. Omens are, well, there are 8 of them, at least in the Rome's case. I don't know if it's different for different nations. But you can get the blessings of various kinds of gods to give you bonuses of, well, these 8 categories. If you're strapped for money, which probably, well, we currently are, because we need more men to fuel further conquest, we should just take a look at our economy here. We are earning 9.92 from taxes currently, and 2.45 from commerce. So if we want to boost our economy, we should probably go with the blessing of Pluto to increase our national tax by plus 22.4%. So we'll do that, and our economy is suddenly up by an additional 2 or so. Does it have a name? Ducats is in EU4. Don't know what it's called in Rome, unfortunately. But whatever it was called in Rome, that's what we're earning currently, which is fairly nice. Fairly nice. Let's take a look at our government before we head off. Oh, okay, here in the nation overview. Okay, I'm gonna restart. Hi there. Welcome to Imperator Rome. Let's take a look at the nation overview. All of the different government types, I think, will have different sets of ideas that will then match. So we will want to match them to gain these benefits listed over here. So if we match them, we will have plus 0.2 loyalty, 0.02 loyalty, in fact, to all characters, plus 10% national freeman happiness, and then gain 1 extra in all of these categories, which sounds like a fairly good deal. Rome starts with 2 military ideas and 1 oratory idea. You can diverge from it. You have various ideas here, not all of them unlocked, only these 3 per group, and then you will unlock more as you gain technology levels in the various categories. So this was a military idea, and we would like to have a military idea to match here. Morale of armies sounds like to be a pretty decent one, and ordered retreat sounds to be a pretty decent one. And for our oratory ideas, oratory is over here, we could have monthly corruption minus 0.2, we could have increased loyalty, or we could increase our improved opinion maximum to 33%, which I think I'm going to do. Now we have that unlocked, and we will earn more from the various categories. Sounds pretty straightforward enough. We have civilization level that is improved upon by various ideas that you can, or inventions that you can take, and also the technology level of your oratory advances. And your country civilization level limits the what your province's civilization level can be. And the higher the civilization value, the more of these modifiers you get. Supply limit, barbarian growth is lowered, which is not really relevant in this case. And the happiness of everyone but tribesmen who kind of hates civilization, apparently. And population growth as well. So you want, I mean, the higher the civilization value, the better, generally speaking. Alright, that should be most of it from here. You have a list of the provinces that you own, and the loyalty, and yeah, some basic stats from them. Also the different kind of government policies that are here. Alright, the government itself. You have the consul. The consul stats is, well, you gain, let's see, I think it's divided by 2, so half. So in this case we earn, and maybe even rounded down, yeah. So we have 7 in martial for our Publius Sempronius Sophus. And we gain +3 extra military power per month from that. And we have 9 in civic, and we gain 4. We have 6 in oratory, and gain 3, and 8 from in religious, or seal, that is 4 there. So he is obviously, you want as good of a consul as possible. You are limited in how you can choose or influence that, though. You can endorse the different factions and gain tyranny, which is a completely different thing, which we'll probably get into later. You have 8 different offices that will give various bonuses. The censor, that gives Senate influence, or increases Senate influence. The Praetor, which lowers aggressive expansion, or make sure that it lowers more quickly. The Tribunus Militum, which gives discipline. Praefectus Militaris, that gives national tax. The Augur, which increases the omen power. And Pontifex Maximus, that lowers the cost for sacrifice to the gods. Sacrifice to the gods is essentially increased stability. You have stability here as well, and you can spend some religious power to increase that further up. Tribunus Plebis, that increases the national freeman happiness. And of course the Vulnerarius, which is the doctor essentially, and he increases the health of all the characters. At least the characters in the government. I don't know about other characters, but at least the characters in government. And we have different kinds of laws that have the Roman names. If you're playing not Roman, I think they just have regular names. And you can change here to adjust certain things. And you can do that several times. It just costs quite a lot of oratory power. Oratory power is in general used for stuff like that. Laws and everything, foreign policy. Like we wanted to get a claim, we would have to use oratory power, which we don't have, and so forth. So that's what you do in government. And you can see the Senate, how big it is. You can see what the support is for the various factions and how it increases or lowers. So yeah. And we have military. We have 2 tabs, show traditions and show stats. The stats part just shows, well, the stats of the various units. Even units that you don't currently can build, like the Dromedari or Equites Sagittari and the Cari, war elephants. Some of these you can get by just importing goods. Some of them maybe not. I think you can't make these unless you're the barbarians. And traditions. In Rome's case, we have the Italic traditions, which gives a bunch of different bonuses. And I think, well, the Greeks have their own, and the barbarians have one that is more common to them. So Carthage and Rome and stuff will have their own, and others will just have to make do with what they have. After that, we have technology. We've already seen the technology. Religion, we've already seen that too. Here is the sacrifice. No, actually, there we go. Sacrifice to the gods button, and then we also have invoke devotio, which reduces war exhaustion. Familiar from EU4. The economy here, we do have options to lax or set harsh taxation. And generally speaking, the negative there is quite high for what you get. For example, army maintenance, it costs 50% extra maintenance to get 10% increased morale of armies. So if you're really rich, you can do it. If you're not, well, it might not be worth it for you. might not be worth your while. But it is available, and I quite like it. I mean, you can decrease cost of your standing army if you remember to decrease pay, but minus 80% morale of armies to save 33% army maintenance may or may not be worth it. So most of them will be like a fully maintained army, unlike what you do in, for example, EU4. Let's see, diplomacy, pretty straightforward. Decisions, some decisions available, like the embellishment of Temple of Jupiter, Optimus Maximus, and then some other things that we probably will encounter later. Trade overview, kind of forgot this even existed. I haven't really reached this one yet. That's good to know that it's there. And the characters and the mercenaries. And some of the mercenaries are placed, I think all of them are actually placed on the map. You could just click them here to gain their help. Alright, I think that's it. Let's just start. Let's start the time. One of the suggestions for when playing Rome is to declare war on Etruria. Etruria is in alliance with the Finitaria. Finitaria being over here. I'm not sure if we have a strong enough army to take them out though. I'm not certain. We could build another legion, make some cohorts. Principes is the Roman heavy infantry, at least in this part of the game. And maybe we should have some Sagittari. Not there, not there. Don't build them. God damn it. Not in this place. Sagittari. There we go. Offer alliance from Apulia. Apulia wants to be allied with us. Fine, we'll join an alliance with them. Sagittari, let's have 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's increase the army a little bit. I mentioned a bit with the maintenance thing. One of the things I find to be quite intriguing, because I was thinking, okay, so how do you model the whole armies being more loyal to certain generals than to this? I don't want this. I don't want to trade away the iron, that lowers our discipline. Oh, I clicked through an event that I wanted to read. Anyway, how do you do the whole armies are... Come on, can I just talk a little bit before having something come up? Sure, Sardinia, we will be in a defensive war with you. Alright, so how do you model the whole... Some armies and legions are more loyal to the generals than to the Senate. And one thing here is that for every month in each army, depending on, I think, the military skill primarily of the leader and a few other factors, will give a chance for a cohort to become loyal to the general instead of to Rome, so to speak. And if one cohort or more is loyal to the general, you pay half the maintenance on it. So in some cases, since for example heavy infantry is actually quite costly, at least in the start of the game, if you look here, the Principes, actually this doesn't say here, does it? Okay, is it in the military stats? Principes? No? Okay, where the hell did I find that then? Oh no, it's just if I select one. I can't remember. It costs 0.5 ducats or whatever you want to call it. So sometimes you want people to be loyal to the general, just to be able to field more men and to not have to pay the maintenance for it. But if they are loyal, you can't disband the entire army straight away. Right now I can't disband this army because none of them are loyal. But eventually some of them will become loyal, and then you can't disband the army outright. You can take away units that are not loyal, but you can't remove units that are loyal. So you're limited in what you can do if you have cohorts that are loyal to the general. Which I like the system quite a lot. Lucania wants to have an alliance, and these guys want to trade with us. They want to import wood. I can accept wood. Yes, let's pretend I meant that a different way. And the Latin local power of Lucania offers us an alliance, and so does the Sardinia. We should accept the Sardinian ones and say no to Lucania. Lucania is bigger, to be fair, but Sardinia, I mean, look at them, look at them. They are our good friends suddenly. Maybe we should do some influence with them, and no, it's relation. We could improve the relations by 66.5. Thing we could try to do is, let's see, influence, offer feudatory status. And they would currently disagree completely with that, so maybe we shouldn't. We'll have them as alliance for now. Too many relations. Did not know that. We'll be fine. And Sabinia and Sabinia, what? Sabinia and Sabinia don't want to be in alliance with us anymore. What a shame. What a shame. And now they're all together. Let's select a leader for that. Let's take that guy. Alright, so now we can declare war on Etruria if we so desired. We have a lot of allies along the way, and quite frankly, we probably should. Just straight out go to war and try to win against our biggest threat that we have, which is Etruria. Etruria has 17 cohorts, we have now 24. That gives us the edge. They have 351 pops, which is quite a bit. We have 394. And so for all of these actions, the Senate, it's preferable if 60% of the Senate is behind your decision. Then you get a thumbs up for it, like this one. They would really like to demand tribal vassal status, which is something we could potentially do. They would never agree to it, but we could potentially do that. They're not so fond of, like only 55% of the Senate agrees with declaring war on Etruria. We can still do it. You're not limited to, by what the Senate wants. It's just that you increase tyranny, and which we will do in order to do this. We have a lot of allies that are involved. Maybe we should just have these guys for now. They are still fairly powerful, and I think we can do it with just them, and instead of throwing in our current allies. Our proper allies, so to speak. So we'll declare war, increase tyranny by 5. Okay, so now we have a perfect thing to look at what a tyranny does. Tyranny, depending on what level you have, will lower the happiness of your primary culture, the monthly loyalty of the general, admiral, and governors, and apparently will also increase national slave output, imprison cost, lower that, and execute cost, lower that as well. It is lowered by the popularity of your ruler and a few other things like inventions and whatnot. Sometimes tyranny can be good, sometimes it can be fairly bad. And aggressive expansion is also more interesting because not only does it make people more wary of you and will try to stop you from expanding perhaps, but it also, if you have other cultures than your own, which you will eventually have, you can try to integrate them as fast as you possibly can, but you will have people of the wrong culture. And especially since, I mean, Latin is one culture, or Roman is one, and then there's others in the same culture group. Those are still the wrong culture. And then you have wrong culture group happiness, and that is also lowered by even more. And the loyalty of subject states is also lowered. So yeah, there are negatives to aggressive expansion beyond just people not liking you very much. We have here, maybe we should have this for now, but you have different stances that you can pick. You have a neutral stance, which doesn't have any benefits or negative. You have a peacing stance, we can't really see the negatives right now, or positives, because, well, we don't have the oratory power to do it. So we'll just do that after the war. Let's begin with the war, maybe lower speed a little bit. Forts are in with the zone of control. As you can see, local tensions. Tensions have been growing between the Roman colonists and locals in Capua. The locals claim that our settlers are rejecting local traditions and power structures. Our colonists, on the other hand, claim that the locals are only alarmed because the new Roman settlement is surpassing the existing metropolis of the region. So we can support Roman interests, which will make Roman freemen appear in Capua, and the rest of the cities there will have unrest for 10 years, which is fairly high. Or we could do that or reject it and the governor will like us less. We should go with what the governor wants. Let's support Roman interest in Capua, which is a city that featured, I think, in Spartacus, was it? Which is a good TV show, I like it. So here we have the capital of Etruscan Etruria. Right here. And that one is actually becoming under our control, just due to having in our zone of influence. The other ones are not, though, which is probably due to... I'm gonna go with reasons. Do you have a fort here? There is a fort and there is a fort. Over here. 2 forts. Well, we'll go in and occupy a bit anyway. Our allies are coming in here with 4,000 here. These guys, maybe we should call them in anyway. We can call them in after all. Call to arms, Sardinia? Yeah, we'll call you in. Here we have, people want our iron. The thing is that if you have a surplus in regions, you would get even bigger bonuses. So we would lose our 10% heavy infantry discipline if we traded away our iron in our capital province of Latium. However, if we are exporting it, we will gain 5% instead. So we will lower it by 5%, which is not ideal during a war. However, you get quite a bit of money if you do export. So exporting and commercial things will be a good source of income going forward, just not this forward. We'll wait a little bit. Iron is good to have. Iron is needed to build the heavy infantry that we're currently fielding. If you don't have iron, you need to import it in order to make them. Same thing with maybe... I know horses specifically and elephants. You need to import elephants or produce elephants in a region in order to produce them. So you can't just automatically produce all types of units straight away in regions. We are a bit limited. Luckily, we produce iron here. We even have a surplus. Surplus gives us plus 10%. I want to look here. We have currently 10% for surplus of iron in capital. Yeah. And then we have plus 6% of Tribunus Militum. So we have 16%, or 6% in all of the armies, and 16% specifically for the heavy infantry, which is pretty good. And as you occupy things, you have a chance to kill the people living there, or parts of the people living there, and gaining some slaves that will be transported back into your homeland. We currently have 3 tribesmen. Some of them are actually getting more tribesmen. Tribesmen shouldn't be that happy. No, they're not that happy due to this civilization level. Here we have the Trurian army that consists of heavy infantry, essentially the same mix that we have, with more heavy infantry. No, with less heavy infantry and more light infantry. So I think our army should be strong enough to take that down. I do feel a big army though. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. Oh no, the public has become dumb. If he's dumb, that means his finesse is lowered by -2, which is not great because then we get less civic power. Oh no, don't go in there. We're gonna have to save them, don't we? Imminent battle, our side might win. That's not a good sign. We need more people here. Actually, now it's likely that we will win. Very likely. So we'll have a battle coming up. There we go. The Battle of Russia. Rusle. So we have different tactics here. We have the shock action currently selected, and they have the deception. None of them are very good against each other, so they kind of cancel each other out. And now well, there we go. We lost 1,687, and they lost more. Yeah, we lost quite a bit of archers. I'm not certain about what to make when it comes to stuff like army composition and whatnot. I mean, I know that different kinds of troops will have different tactic effectiveness. For example, the heavy infantry has a 100% effectiveness factor against this tactic. But since they're only composed, like our army is only composed like 65% currently in the total amount of soldiers, it has the effectiveness of 64%. However, bottleneck archers have a 50% effectiveness there, so our amount of archers gives us 17%. In total, that's 82% effectiveness for bottleneck. So maybe we should have bottleneck instead with the current setup. Same thing here with this guy. 49% due to our cavalry not contributing whatsoever. But the cavalry gives us such effectiveness at deception, so maybe we should have that instead. Let's try deception. We would gain the following bonus. Yeah, let's do that. And wine. We can do that. We'll gain more money than the army maintenance increase that we then would have. Damn, our allies have a lot of armies. Look at this, 26,000 men sitting here trying to occupy that. That's nice, I like it. Maybe we should speed through a little bit because the sieges do take a while. Currently here we have a 21% chance of siege phase outcome. The spread of ISIS. When I first had this event, I kind of had to take a double take for it, because like, what? How did Islamic State arrive in Rome? What time is this? But of course it's the Egyptian goddess Isis. And let's see, an Egyptian ship has docked at a port in our city of Ostia, carrying a priest of the Isis cults amongst its cargo. The Egyptian goddess has seen a growing cult in her honor, with all the rites and celebrations one usually sees among the mystery cults of the Greek pantheon. The cult is certain to set their sights on Rome if we let them, and start sharing their teachings among our locals, though we have heard a lot of good things about this cult. Maybe it is for the better. So we could welcome them, which will lose us some religious power, and 25% of the freemen and citizens in Ostia will convert to Chemeticism. Ostia then will get ISIS cult until end of the game, giving -1 local unrest. Or we could bar them from entry, and since I would like to keep people Hellenic, let's bar them from entry. Let's do that. We have an invention that we can take. Could we make military artisans, or maybe technology speed overall, 5%. That's for all of them. That sounds like a good thing. Alright. Things are going well for Rome. Maybe we should increase... Oh no, wait, thank you. Thank you, alright. They have soldiers here too, in this part of Etruria. Or is this separate Etruria? No, we're at war with them. So we could send over some men there. They currently have 21 cohorts. Here they have, well, not all of them, but here they have about 16 of them. So if we send over this army on ships, so we will need more ships for that. Let's build a navy. We should have something like that. Yeah, there we go. So we'll try to build some more triremes, and then we can sail over and try to occupy this part of Corsica, and that could be beneficial. Of course, now they are trying to prevent us from finishing this siege. We have 42% chance if we win. There we go. And 3 pops were captured and has been distributed as slaves like this. 1 to Rome and 2 pops died. How is the 3? Oh, they were captured. Okay. And popularity. So what we can do now with a victory is not at all hold triumphs, because that's not a proper victory. Of course, we were meaning like a battle victory. We have, do we have any more siege places? We have that siege place over there that we need to support our allies in taking. And now suddenly we almost went into a sort of a trap there. There's a lot of allies marching around. A lot of allies. Okay, so how much weight can this guy carry? Tribal Chief Camillus offers friendship. We could be friends with Tribal Chief Camillus of the Puglia. So yeah, sure, why not? I don't see an issue with that. We're gonna switch consul eventually anyway. So even if it turns out to be negative, we don't really have to deal with it for that long. Here is the full brunt of their force though. We have 8,000, 5,000, 8,000. Most of them went there. We have a lot of allies nearby. We should wait for them to make the first move and then tag along, because we can't really trust them to follow our lead now, can we? So can you... Let's see, now we have 6 ships. We're still waiting for some. Yeah, we're waiting for 4 triremes still. 18,000 men. Should move forward a little bit. We have occupied all the forts that we can occupy, I think. We just need to defeat their army, which is the hard part. So where is the battle actually going to happen? Is it going to happen here? Yes, it is. We should send in our men to assist. They will get some reinforcements in time, both from us and from our allies. So now we have a massive army in comparison to theirs. Look at that, 35,000 men against the Etruscan forces. Sure, the Etruscans are killing us more than we're killing them, but will it be enough? No, it will not be enough. We lost one of the trade routes that we have in our capital, which we could then try to regain. We could have fish, we could have olives, we could have... well, that's pretty much it, really. No vegetables, stone. Vegetables? Olives. Maybe we should make the slaves happy. Get some olives for the people, or slaves. They're gonna move to this little island. Alright, so how are we doing with the... Oh, Legis Actionis. The recent work of plebeian jurist Gnaeus Flavius, his Legis Actionis, or Actions in Law, is the first written account of the legal procedures of Rome. The importance of this work propelled him to the office of tribune of the plebs and garnered him wide popular support. The full extent and interpretation of our laws has, until now, been a verbal tradition of our judiciary, and Flavius' attempt to codify parts of our legal procedures for a wider audience has not been wholly appreciated. Some patricians argue a public airing of our sacred laws, by a plebeian no less, threatens their traditional prerogative over government positions and the laws of Rome, while the populace welcome greater rights and participation for the plebs. So we can go for transparency can only benefit our legal system, which would give Gnaeus, the Tribunus Plebis, some popularity and prominence, maybe propelling him to becoming the next consul. And we would also have the populist faction promoted. And we would get the Legis Actionis that increases freeman happiness and enacted law cost minus 20%. Or this one that will cost us quite a bit. The civic faction would be influenced, and here's another thing that I didn't mention before. Depending on from which faction your consul comes from, you will have different bonuses, and in the case of the populist faction, a negative. I mean, the populace being the populists, they appeal to a broad spectrum of people. But if your consul comes from that faction, all the power cost is increased by 20% or 10%. If your people come from or your consul comes from the religious faction, the omen power is increased, and maybe more importantly, the convert pop cost is reduced by 33%. The mercantile faction gives, unsurprisingly, 10 plus 10% in national commerce income, and also increases diplomatic reputation by 2. Military factions gives you morale of armies and navies plus 10%, and the civic faction decreases build cost and time by 10% and increases national tax by 25%. So, you sometimes want to have leaders from, well, not the populist faction. If we agree to this, then it's more likely that the populist faction will gain senators and perhaps eventually become the consul. So if we take a look at the law here in question, what was the law that was going to be Legis Actionis. Why can't I find that? Or is that just a thing we gain? Rome gains. I think that's just the temporary modifier. I gotcha. I thought it was a law that you got for it. All right. We would gain tyranny for doing this, but the civic faction would be boosted. And we would still get the bonus for it. And then he would be barred from office. Let's do this. Let's kick them out. We don't want the populist. We just need to find a new Tribunus Plebis now. Quintus Fabius Gurgus, you do not what your predecessor did. Instead, do what we want you to do. Sounds a bit tyrannical if you put it like that, isn't it? No. Wait with Legion 9-11. Huh. We need more ships. We need 2 more ships. We'll build them. We'll build the ships that are needed to make sure that we can swallow Etruria whole. Etruscans. Yeah, that's another thing. While we're waiting for those ships to be built, right? The different units have different weights when it comes to how much attrition they take. So Sagittarii or archers have minus 10%, which is not that big of a deal. The bigger deal is for heavy cavalry, the equites in this case, has plus 100%. So if we compare to, for example, the dromedari, you can have 2 dromedari where you can have 1 equites, supply-wise counted. The principes take 50% extra, and they also take minus 10% morale damage taken, and they overall have fairly good stats. And in Rome's case, Rome also gets a bunch of bonuses in regards to heavy infantry. But that just means that you can field fewer heavy infantry in a province if you want to keep the supply cap. which is not a big of a deal here when it comes to all the civilized land, since if you remember the civilization level of the province increases the supply. So in these parts, no problem really when it comes to having a lot of heavy infantry. It's when you get to these regions that it really starts to suck, because then the supply is, well, not very high. So if you try to go into, I mean, these parts, you don't have supply. It's just supply barely exists. Oh no, god damn it. Accepted a peace deal without really knowing what it was. Sounds like a great leader to me. And then we take a look at war offense. That's 200% attrition rate. The Velitest, or light infantry, has minus 50%. So, where you could have, if we have 3 for example, the Velitest, you could have 6 Velitest, where you could have 2 heavy infantry or Principes. If you have a weight of 3, if you have 3 supply in a place, you have 2 Principes because they're 1.5 each, and you could have 6 Velitest since they're 0.5 each. So just to paint a picture. Of course, they also have different bonuses and negatives to other units, which is quite important to keep in mind. So, for example, if we just take a look at Macro Builder, the Principes, for example, have a 20% extra damage towards light infantry, and the light infantry in turn has minus 25% to the heavy infantry. So heavy infantry is really, really, really good against light infantry. It's just you can feel a lot more light infantry than heavy infantry. Alright, that was quite a lot of words. Now we can sail over here. So people broke their alliances with us, because they really don't like us, I guess. We could split this in half and then send over more men to join here, because they are starting to field quite a big force. And sure, we are probably going to win that battle, but it's not gonna be as... well, it's getting quite close, isn't it? So we'll send more men over, just to aid in these battles. We're gonna ignore that one of them lacks commanders right now. Gnaeus Flavius is actually disloyal currently, after we... Is he the one that was barred from office? Maybe not. Either way, he's disloyal, and we don't want him to be. So we will bribe him. Bribing doesn't actually cost money, surprisingly enough. You just pay a bit of oratory power, and he gains 20 loyalty. You also gain some corruption, which is not the best. Though corruption is not necessarily bad. If we take a look at the corruption here, he's more likely to. The more corruption a person has, the more likely he is to join the populist faction. It also increases the monthly wages that you have to pay, as well as the power costs if he's the consul, which in this case he is. All right, fine. Don't go. Do they have any forts here? Do you have no fort currently? No fort. That's good. So we simply just have to take over all of it. And after that, we should be done with this war and have, well, won. We should take a look at where they are going, just make sure they don't get up into any bad stuff. They're gonna try to sneak around this, aren't they? Yeah, surprisingly enough, these guys are not part of any nation, but they are quite civilized, really civilized actually, and have citizens and everything. But apparently they're not part of any faction, or nation, or state, or entity. We have another invention here. We're gaining quite a lot of civic power due to our leader. That's not always going to be the case. So we are actually gaining quite a few of these. As soon as these techs are done, we're going to have 12 additional choices. And the new ones go on top of the old ones. So if you want something really, really badly here, make sure to get it. Because when these things are up, you will have 12 new things. And as you go through those, the old ones will appear. But, you know, since a new tech again and will go on top. So eventually, you will be... well, you can't really pick the old ones. We should maybe have a peace now instead of going to additional battle. So we will see what we can get here. We will take this, we will take this, we will take this, we'll take this, and we will take that, thank you very much. They don't have a choice really in this regard. They will say yes. They would say yes anyway. We'll take all their money, which is quite a bit of money. Makes sense that you can take the money if you're essentially killing them. That's not part of the enemy, is it? No. I think that is all the enemy has. Full annexation, essentially. This the peace offer will increase your rank to regional power. Are you sure? Yes, I am certain. Alright, since we now have become a regional power, we get one more capital import routes. We have +3 diplomatic relations compared to whatever we had before. +50% diplomatic range and +100% government bonus multiplier. So now we will have +2 in these groups as soon as we become it. And that's fairly nice. Okay, the Etruscan elite. So every time you annex someone, you have a choice on what to do with the leading families of that land. You could slaughter them all, which will give a small boost to popularity of your current ruler. You can banish those of class and put a rest to the sword, which will essentially, they will move to other places, then go in exile and try to join those countries. They will lower aggressive expansion by 0.5. You can imprison their leader and let the rest disappear, which will, well, I mean, you will have prisoners, but your guy won't really get that much popularity. In fact, he will lower it. He will lose some. Or you can decide based on every single family what to do. Perhaps we should pass judgment on important families. I mean, losing 0.5 aggressive expansion sounds pretty nice, but let's see. Maybe there will be some good families. In some ways, it's bad to have too many families due to the whole scorn thing. In some, it's good. So, yeah, I mean, at first when I played through my 10 hours, I was thinking, I don't really need that. Especially when you kill the small things, the small nations like these guys and Ancona and Umbria and Senonia and so on. You can have quite a few of these lower 0.5 aggressive expansion. That's great. That seems like the obvious choice to pick. But then, as the legions expanded and I needed better generals, and I ran out of good ones. Like if you only have 2 armies, it's pretty easy to have one or like 2 or 3 good generals to pick from, like really good generals. But as you end up with like 9-10 armies, getting 9-10 great generals, not the easiest. So if you have more families, there's a greater chance of getting good generals. So sometimes you want to keep them. We could keep this family, and their 9 members would move here, or the Laracena family and get their 13 members, or the Nissunus family of 3, or the Prasna family of 5. I like the name Voltureno, so I think I will keep that. They will come here, and the rest will be crucified. Harsh, but fair. Actually, it's not fair at all. We left our defensive league. We are no longer part of our former defensive league. We are just too powerful to be a member of a defensive league whatsoever. That's fair. In each of the regions, let's see, region map mode, you can have, or probably you should have, a governor. We already have one guy controlling our lands in Magna Graecia, or Magna Graecia. We will now have one in Cisalpine Gaul. Or did we already have one now? We have a lack of governor. There we go. Gnaeus Flavius, I know we have been on, well, not the best of terms, but here, be governor. Be happy. And he will automatically set a governor policy. In this case, he has a governor policy of cultural assimilation, and depending on his stats, he will have a plus 25% chance every month of one pop converting to the Roman culture in each of these provinces, right? And instead we'll have +1 local unrest. Sometimes, I mean, there's a bunch of different governor policies here. Some of them, like bleed them dry, you may or may not actually want to have. It's good sometimes, but you may want to mess around with it. But since the governors are sort of autonomous, it will give you tyranny if you mess around with it too much. I prefer to just try to get people to join the Roman culture and be happy from there. That's just me. Alright, that's a victory for Rome. We have conquered Etruria and we are on the path to Roman greatness. I think I will round this episode off here. We actually have some starving pops in these newly acquired lands. But things are looking up. I think so. Things are looking Roman. And since we've expanded quite a bit, we will then try to take a swipe down on Samnium and maybe Lucania. Or maybe just go to the east here and take more land. We do have this place over here in Apulia. So maybe we will try to unify some lands. We'll see what happens in the next episode. Thank you very much for watching this episode. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you next time. Have a good one.